guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back to day 2 of our Stress Less, Live More event. The truth about your stress and how to finally put it behind you. Today we're going to be going deeper on all the fun we learned yesterday. So I hope you guys enjoyed all the stuff you were learning yesterday. I loved reading all of the homework prompts and not the prompts, the comments that you guys left for us. So welcome back. While we wait for everyone to get on and get here and get settled, drop in the chat your biggest aha moments from yesterday and how are you feeling today? Are you excited? Are you overwhelmed? Are you confused? Are you, I don't know, what are you? Let us know. And just get yourself settled, put those phones somewhere, take a few breaths and get ready for day 2. So we can learn all sorts of cool new things. Feel free to dance to the music, whatever you're feeling. I'm excited to be back here with you guys. Remember, if you want to participate in that scholarship that we're pulling on Thursday for a full scholarship to our membership for a year, make sure you're going onto our app and answering those homework questions. All right, guys, are you ready to dive in for day 2? Okay. So first, let's recap day 1. And before I get into the content of day 1, few housekeeping things. Like I said, remember, if you want to qualify for that scholarship, head over to our Hey You Human app. If you haven't already downloaded it, download it. Go to the Stress Less, Live More event on the app, and there are beautiful homework prompts for you. All you have to do is answer them. That qualifies you to win our scholarship that we will pull on Thursday for a year-long scholarship to our Happy Human membership, which we'll be talking a little bit more about tomorrow. So yeah, I don't think there's any other housekeeping. Anything else, Melissa? Okay. All right. Well, let's recap day 1. So I gave you a lot of information yesterday, starting with my definition of stress, which is stress is the unprocessed emotions and trauma living in our body that was caused by lived experiences and life memories. So it's actually not things happening outside of our body. It has very little to do with the external and everything to do with our internal. And we're going to dive into this more today because there are stressful events. There are traumatic events, right? Our world has a lot happening in it that is causing a physiological reaction within our body. But it's actually what we do with that reaction decides whether or not we have stress. We learn and experience life through our emotions. We're going to talk more about that today too. Our emotions and unrecognized trauma are running the show. So you may think you deciding you're going to start working out 5 a.m. every morning is a great choice. But isn't it interesting how often these things we decide we want to do, like they don't ever actually happen in our lives, or they happen for a very short period and then we're back at square one? It's because we aren't necessarily in control here. We're often being ruled by these beliefs and these experiences that are living in us from our emotions and our trauma that we never resolved. In order to shift this, we must feel our emotions and process our trauma to remove them from our bodies. And this results in the elimination of stress. And it also results in the complete overhaul of your life. You'd be amazed where all of a sudden things that were really hard for you to do. And this is what we hear so much from people when they do this work with us is, something that seemed so hard to do now like feels like easy, and I'm not procrastinating and I'm just doing it. And it really, really changes. And what we learned at the end of day one is most of us don't actually know how to feel our emotions. And we're going to really dive into this today. So before we dive into day two, everybody just take a moment. Take a moment to connect with yourself. Take a moment to take all those thoughts and things that are going on in your head out of your head, put them to the side for a moment so that you can really be here, be present with me, be present with your body, be present with this information, because this information will change your life if you really listen and we really start to embody it and make it part of our world. Okay, day two, let's dive in. Okay, so before we fully dive in, let's back up and really learn some things. Let's talk about our bodies, because I talked a lot yesterday about our bodies and stress. I talked about how something happens, a stressful or traumatic event happens, and it stimulates a response in our body. And what happens to us is that we do not listen to our bodies. We don't have the full emotion. We don't have the full physical reaction, and it ends up staying in our body. The physical reaction never fully completes. That emotion, that the evolution of that experience never occurs, and it just sits in here. And that's what causes a lot of your stress. Think of how often things are just running around in your head that are stressing you out. Past events, future things that might happen, and you just feel. And anxiety, because somebody had asked yesterday, like, what's the difference between stress and anxiety? Anxiety is really where it's gone even deeper. You've pushed it so far down deep, like, wow, you really don't even know. Stress, we often know what it's about, right? Stress, we're like, okay, I know that this is happening and this is happening and this is happening, and it's making me feel a certain way. Anxiety is often like, I just have all of this anxiety and I have no idea what's happening. Caused by the same things, are unprocessed emotions, but one's a little more here, one's a little bit deeper down. So your body is smart, guys. And like I said earlier, we learn, we evolve through our emotions. And so how humaning is supposed to work is a little bit like this. Something happens in your life. An experience occurs. Whether or not your body deems it stressful, traumatic, whatever, an event occurs. When this event occurs, you have an entire physiological, mental, physical, spiritual, energetic reaction within your body. A whole bunch of things start to happen from this outside stimuli. And your body, my friends, is smart. It knows what to do. It knows what to do to bring you back to homeostasis. It knows what to do to bring you back to balance. A great example of this is children. When you see a child knows what to do with their emotions. And you did too, once upon a time. Something would happen in your life. Let's say your mom took a chip away from you and you were angry. So you yelled and you screamed and you cried and you flailed your body all around. And then you were fine. You didn't care about the chip anymore. And I see this all the time with my children because they're able to freely express. They will be crazy about something all over the place, all over the thing, and then it's over. And most of the time, then they come back and they say, I'm sorry that I reacted that way. Like, I get it. Yeah, that was totally a me thing. They get it. Now, I truly believe that if we were allowed to express freely as children and we weren't judged, we weren't shamed, the parents didn't make it about them, that as we got to adults, we would have fully integrated, understood so much about our emotions that we wouldn't be out in the world living through our emotions, kind of almost looking like children. How often do you look at adults sometimes and you're like, geez Louise, you're acting like a child? Well, because most of us actually didn't get to process all of our childhood emotions. And so it's causing all of this stuff going on in our body. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. And so we didn't get that period as children to learn and integrate all of this. And so now it's all kind of stuffed up in us, and we still don't know what to do with it. And if we would have just listened to our body is actually really smart. Our body knows what to do. A perfect example of this is going into shock. In our world, when someone goes into shock, we freak out. We actually try to stop the shock process. When in fact, a lot of the processes, the shaking that our body does, the getting really cold that our body does, the hyperventilation, the breathing, the crying, the can't stop crying moments, that is our body responding appropriately to the event and actually doing the things it needs to do to bring us back into balance. But we stop it. We stop the tears, we stop the anger, we stop the physicalness, we stop all sorts of stuff. And we have been since childhood. We have been since childhood. And we just pass this on to our kids. Just pass it on to kids. I mean, I really want you to think right now, how many times in your life, in the past week, you have had an outside stimuli and you've had a reaction and you couldn't actually have it. You instead shook it off, stopped yourself, moved on, and never gave your body that period of time to respond, to do the full thing it needed to do. And like I said, when we look back at our kids, they know how to do this. And then we teach them not to do this. So a really cool story to share with you guys, the polar bear. So this was a really cool video that was actually shared with me when we were doing our certification for somatic breath work, which is a modality we use on top of the rapid relief technique in our work. And we were talking about how your body, exactly this, like your body knows what to do. Your body knows how to bring you back into balance. And it's even cool, guys, like they've tested tears and stuff. When women, for example, when they are menstruating and they often have a lot of emotions, their tears often carry mass amounts of estrogen in them. You're literally getting your body back to balance by crying. You are crying out the excess hormone that your body doesn't need, that may be caused because of external things or things like this. Like your body's very cool. It's just, we have stopped listening to our bodies. And we're always just trying to put something in it to fix it instead of sitting back and just emoting the emotions. Your emotions are about bringing you back to balance. Now, this polar bear was being chased, and this is all on video. This polar bear was being chased by a helicopter. Very traumatic event, right? He's running, the helicopter's chasing him. They shoot him with a tranquilizer gun. The polar bear, goes down. They do whatever they need to do to the polar bear. And as the polar bear starts coming out of the sedation, its entire body starts shaking like crazy. And then it starts to run. It starts to run. And it's like sleep. Its body's doing all of this, right? It's doing all of this stuff. And then when the polar bear wakes up, kind of like shakes it off, and it goes on its way. And they've seen this time and time again with animals. Animals that go through these traumatic situations, when they often come out of them, they almost reenact the traumatic situation, do all the things they need to do, and then they're back to balance. We forget that we are animals. We definitely have the big brains and the processors, but our bodies are still animalistic. We still have animalistic tendencies in us. And maybe we're going to evolve past those eventually. I don't know, but we can't evolve past them until we fully integrate them, and we integrate through emotions again. And we have not been doing that. We have not been doing that at all. And so we're left with this big ball of stress and anxiety. And furthermore, just like the polar bear that was trying to reenact what would happen, we do that in our lives. We have a traumatic situation, we have something emotional that occurred, and we continue to play out those scenarios with other people and other situations. Do you ever feel sometimes where you're like, oh my God, why does this pattern keep showing up in my life? Why does this keep happening? Why do I attract the same type of people? Why does this do? And you like, no matter what you do, you can't seem to break the pattern. And you're like, ugh. It's because you don't break the pattern through behavior, through mindset, through therapy. You actually break the pattern through feeling all of the emotions that are coming up around it, going back to the core event, feeling those emotions all around it, and then you can actually evolve past it. So, stressful traumatic situations versus stress and trauma. So I feel like trauma is like the buzzword right now of the day. Everybody's like, oh, trauma, trauma trigger. Oh, are you trauma informed? Oh, trauma. And a lot of people are throwing around these words trauma, and they don't even know what trauma is. We talk about trauma more like it's the thing that happened when it's not. Stress, there's stressful and there's traumatic situations. Those are probably not going anywhere anytime soon. There's always, shouldn't say always, but for right now, there's going to be stimuli like that in our world. It's the world we live in. Unless you're going to go be a monk up in the temple over there where you see no outside people, no outside news, and everything's taking care of you, you're likely going to run into stimuli in this world. Stressful stimuli, traumatic stimuli. But that does not equate to stress and trauma. Stress and trauma is what lives in you after those events if you do not fully process them. And we're going to talk in a little bit about re-traumatizing, because people always are like, oh my God, if I go back to this, am I going to re-traumatize myself? We'll talk about this. But before that, let's talk about big T versus little t. Big T? Big T is like the trauma, the traumatic events that we all view as traumatic. Car accident, divorce, rape, death, right? Where we're like, oh yeah, that was traumatic. You should have trauma from that. Oh yes, when really actually you shouldn't have trauma if you just processed the traumatic event, which can sometimes take a moment. But as long as we're continuing to process it, even the most traumatic situations can be fully resolved within your body, and you can actually look back at them and go, wow, I really evolved and learned from that. Wasn't my favorite moment to go through, but you don't have any pull to it. And I often ask people this because people will often say after they've been through years of therapy, they'll say to me, well, I have forgiven this, when I work with like rape victims and, people who have been molested, people who have been abused, and they say, yes, I've forgiven. And I say, well, how would you feel if you had to sit next to that person right now? And they're like, I'd kill them. I'm like, okay, so you haven't, that's not forgiveness. That's not fully resolved your trauma. You really truly can come to a place, and I included, I have a lot of fun traumatic events in my past that I never would have believed. And really, it was truly what kind of led me into this work was I always felt like I was settling when it came to healing. I had a lot of traumatic things occur. And it felt like the answer always was just learn how to cope with it the best you can. It's never going to go away. You're never going to be able to look at this situation and feel thankful for it. And that bothered me because I feel like that's like kind of what we're told. We're told that like everything in life, happens. And if we really believe in, a divine or whatever, if we really believe in this world and in this, that everything should be something that we can see the good in and we can really move past. And so it really bothered me that like everything we were doing, I was like, yep, no, I still don't feel that way. Like I feel better about it, but like, no, I'm not there yet. And I wanted to be there. And so this work is what really allowed me to get there. And so I want you to know that right now is we mean it when we say you can live life without feeling stress and trauma in your body. You can fully move past this. And so big T is like the big stuff. Little t is the stuff that may not seem traumatic on the outside, but the way our body and being views it is traumatic. So let me go back to that kid with a chip. Little baby 2-year-old wanted a chip, goes into the drawer, opens the drawer, so proud of themselves, pulls out the bag, got his chip, and mom swoops in, grabs the chip, grabs the bag, slams the drawer, and says, no. That little babe is like, that was traumatic to that little babe. Even things like you being told no as a child can be perceived as traumatic. And if you have children, you may know this. When you do something where you say, we're not going to do that right now, and your kid's like, why are you the worst person in the whole world? Why are you ruining my life? If you have teenagers, you very well may know of this. This is viewed by their being in body right now as a traumatic, extremely stressful event. Now, what happens is because the world doesn't view these things as traumatic, we tell them to knock it off. It's not that big a deal. Stop it. Stop it. And then you know what happens, guys? That trauma lives in you and it rules you. So how many times have you had something happen? Let's say this was a big trauma response for me. Every time my husband would even remotely get like an irritation in his voice or start to get where he'd be like, okay, I don't want to talk about this. Boom. All this, I would just start crying. I would just shut down. I would just want to go away and like hide. Because I just, when I used to see my kids fight and bicker at each other, mainly actually when I used to see my son kind of bother my daughter, I would lose it. I would lose it, you guys. You know why? My trauma was showing from when my brother used to do that to me constantly. But you know what? I wasn't allowed to feel my emotions around that. We were told to stop it, knock it off, and figure it out. And so we did. I wasn't able to express everything I wanted to say in that moment, everything I wanted to feel in that moment. I wasn't able to. And not necessarily that I should have on my brother. When kids are real little, like that 2-year-old does need a space to completely let all of their bodies. And you see this with kids, they flail around. They, they're crazy. They're moving. They're kidding. They're doing all sorts of stuff. Screaming. Now, as we get older as humans, what we have to start understanding is that our emotions are actually a very personal experience. They're actually not meant to be put on display for everyone. And I talked a little bit about this yesterday. We're taking that time out, going somewhere and actually dealing with the emotions, and then coming out and actually talking through it with logic works a whole lot better. But we're not doing that in this world. When I look at this world right now, I see most people running their lives, running their businesses, running their conversations all backed by emotions. And we don't see things necessarily clearly when they're backed by emotions. Emotions are our way of evolving, learning, and experiencing this life. And sure, there can be collective emotions when we're grieving somebody together, right? When we're healing and doing things like this. But for the most part, our emotions really should be a personalized learning experience for us. And you can actually teach this to children. My kids have gotten really good at being like, be right back. I'm having a moment. And they go, they feel it, and then they can come out and say, when you said this, it made me feel this way. And I think it was because of this, but I think also maybe you just need to not say something so, harsh to me. It's different when we're talking unemotionally, you guys, it's different. We can see the other person's perspective. And so we have to understand, because a lot of you are probably sitting here, and as I'm talking about trauma and stuff like this, you're thinking to yourself, I don't have any trauma. I've had a good life. And I can't tell you the clients that have come to me that have said that, like, I don't know what's going on with me. Like, I can't break this pattern. I can't get this to work. I can't get this to work. But like, it's not like I had anything growing up. It wasn't like my parents were great. And we had, we went on vacations and they loved us and they spent time with us. And then we start diving in. And you start to see these very seemingly small things actually were viewed as really traumatic at that time period, at that age. And they're still inside because your body wasn't able to go through it. And it's like the biggest cause of all of your stress right now. You're seeing the world as so reactive and so this because we weren't able to actually go through all of that. So feeling is healing. Or as I like to say, evolving. And the reason I say evolving versus healing is because we often get in this mindset with healing. Because when you think of like a cut, right? I have a little burn on my finger. It hurts. And when you think of healing, there's an end goal, right? You heal, it fully heals up, it's gone. We don't have to think about it anymore. I like to say evolving because we are constantly evolving as humans. We are constantly growing. We are constantly experiencing. And so we're never going to get to this place where our emotions are just gone, where we like get there, we're like, I am 100% healed. I just smile every day, all day long. Nothing. There's no other emotions other than smiles. You're always going to have all of your emotions. You're always going to have all of your emotions. You're a human. It's part of being human, is experiencing this world through emotions. Will it get easier as you clean all this stuff out? Heck yes. Will you start to learn how to actually enjoy all of your emotions? Heck yes. But we're constantly going to be evolving, guys. Think of how many times in your life you've gotten to where you've wanted to be. And then you've been like, okay, well, now I want to go there. It's what we do. There's no end goal here. It's just the journey we're on. So let's talk feelings versus emotions. Because a lot of times when I talk to people, they'll say, well, I am feeling my feelings. And I say, okay, what does that look like? And they're like, well, I was really annoyed at, this guy who cut me off while I was driving. And so I was like saying the things and being like, oh my God, he drives me crazy. And I was saying them all in my head and I was, getting myself, I am feeling them. I could feel it in my body. I was saying all the stuff. That's not exactly feeling. Feeling is really feeling it out of your body. And this is why I like to kind of differentiate between feeling and emotions, because often you can feel it, but emotions is really that energy. It's the movement of the feeling. Emotions, it's the movement. We are moving things out of us. And so a lot of times when people say things like, well, I've let it go, I've surrendered, I've released that, I'm done with that. To actually let something go, you got to let it go. And when it comes to emotions, the way we do this is by actually fully feeling them and getting them out of your body. So it looks like saying all the things you need to say, crying the tears you need to cry, moving your body how you need to move your body. It's an expression of the feelings and the emotions, which most of us aren't doing. We tend to kind of lock them up and keep them at bay, where we think we're feeling. Maybe we squeaked out a tear here or there, we said a few words, but we didn't really go to where our bodies wanted us to go, mainly because it's scary to us. And we're going to talk about that in a bit. And this is where I get to unproductive processing versus productive processing. So unproductive processing is you watch Grey's Anatomy, you cried for half an hour, you feel better because you cried, but we never got to the core. And so the thing comes back. Another example of unproductive processing is like, let's say your mom, for example. I know a lot of adults, their mom just drives them crazy. You constantly have these squabbles with your mom. And then you go home and you cry. She's so mean. She's so mean to me. She's so mean. I just hate her. I just don't know why I do this to myself. And you feel better for a second because you kind of got some emotions out. But we never got to the core. Because what you're actually trying to evolve from is somebody not hearing you, somebody not appreciating you. That time when she took the chip out of your hand when you were 2 years old, right? And it may seem silly now, but to your body, it's still there. Your brain might be saying, well, that's dumb. We don't need to go back there. Your body's like, I don't really care. It's in me and it needs to come out of me. Now, productive emotions are where we're really using what's happening in our world to be self-reflective and self-aware as to what's actually deeper here and feeling those emotions. This is what we're going to teach you tomorrow. So this is where we really get into the rapid relief technique, and we're really going to talk about how we actually start to use the things that are triggering us to actually use them productively so that we're really truly getting to the core of the stress, the anxiety, the overwhelm, actually getting it out of our body so that we actually feel different. Now, for a lot of you, your friend the brain gets involved when we want to do this, and we make a whole bunch of judgments around our feelings and emotions. For example, there have been times in processing my feelings where I have said some of the most terrible, horrible, no good, very bad things about the people I love the most. Were they true? Was it real? Nope. Was it rational or logical? Nope. But it was in me and it was real to me. Our emotions are not logical. They are not rational, but they are real. And I've even had times in my life, guys, where my brain, and this happened when the team and I were in Arizona a month or so back, and we were all together and we were doing a bunch of processing, and it was a really amazing time. And I had a moment where one of my colleagues said something and I had such a reaction, like I was feeling like attacked and upset. And my brain, guys, my brain was literally saying, you know, that is not what's happening here, right? Like, she did not say it like that. And this is what we're often taught in therapy, right? To be self-aware that, okay, that's actually not being mentioned about me. I'm seeing this differently, right? We can understand it logically, but at the end of the day, you guys, my whole body was having a reaction. I was sitting there, I wanted to cry. I had all these things, even though I knew that that is not her intent or what she said at all. My body was saying something different. And sure enough, you guys, I said to everybody, I gotta go cry, because this is how we, like, when you're with people that understand this work and know this, I'm like, I'll be back. And I went into the room and I had so much that came up around all of this stuff. And I'll explain this more tomorrow when we get into how we actually do this. And my brain the whole time knew, you're ridiculous right now. But it didn't matter. Those feelings were real to my body. They were important to me feeling and understanding so that I could release a whole bunch of stress, anxiety around things, a whole lot of stuff that was inhibiting me from being me, inhibiting me from doing the things I want to do in my life. So what are stuck emotions and trauma doing? They're causing our stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. They're stuck in there, dying to come out. They're giving us all these feels. It's like they're tapping you on the shoulder. Excuse me. Can you please process this? Because remember, you want to change jobs. Hey, remember, you want to have a deeper relationship with your husband. Oh, hey, remember, you want your kids to stop fighting. Oh, hey, remember, you want to lose that weight this year. And so all those emotions in there are bubbling up to say, you need to process all of this before any of that's going to happen for you, darling. So they're doing that. They're causing your body issues, you guys. All of that stress and emotions in there. Remember, we have an event that happens in our life. Our body has a physical, mental, physiological, spiritual reaction. If we let that reaction happen, we go back into balance. If we don't let that reaction happen, which most of us are not doing, we're out of balance. And you have these beautiful things called neuropeptides, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, that are causing all sorts of communication things in your body. They're really cool. But what happens is our emotions and our stuff throws them off. They don't get to run their full process. So now they're stuck over here and over here, doing all of the stuff that they shouldn't be doing because you never processed this event. And so they cause all these imbalances. This is why I say, do you ever wonder why pharmaceuticals have so many side effects? Because all they're doing is moving the energy in your body. You take them, they're addressing the neuropeptides over here, telling them, don't do that anymore. And they're like, okay. But nothing actually resolved. So they just go over here and cause an imbalance in another area. It's the same thing a lot of treatments do. And not to say that pharmaceuticals and Western medicine is bad. There's definitely a place for it. And if you pair it with the emotional processing, it can be incredible because often it does jumpstart the energetic movement that you need. And so you often feel very emotional. I think it's, even like open heart surgeries and things like that. When we do things like that, we're moving everything around. Ever wonder why people feel massively depressed after open heart surgery? Well, you just released a whole bunch of emotions that were right in there that were causing these imbalances. And there's a lot of studies on this and a lot of books on this as well. That this has really been researched. There's been documentaries done on people as they begin to release their emotions, come back to balance and things like that. All of a sudden things start changing. It happened to me. I had all sorts of problems, endometriosis, an autoimmune disorder, terrible breakouts, all sorts of issues. And the more I did this work, the more my body came back into balance and all of it just dissipated. And we've had so many people who do this work who have really serious things like MS and cancers and stuff, really find their bodies just healing from the inside as they start to really work on their emotions. Other thing it does, causes a lot of unwanted reactions or responses, right? Those times where you yell at the kids, yell at this person, the time where you react when you didn't want to react. That's our emotions and trauma showing. Continual patterns and behaviors that aren't working anymore. Right? Like I just said, you want to go do this. You want to change this up, but no matter how much you do, you're just not doing the thing. Or you keep attracting the same person. You keep creating the same situation and you don't know why. Well, it's this trying to get resolved. Expectations, societal, familia, personal, like we create all of these expectations of how people should react in our lives because of our emotions and trauma, because we didn't get something from our childhood. And so now we look to our spouses, our friends, our still parents, our kids to act a certain way so that we feel safe and loved and appreciated and respected and happy. And it causes a whole lot of power play dynamics in relationships and work. And it causes even more stress to us because it's just adding on to the stuff that's already there. One of the biggest things your unprocessed emotions are also doing is keeping you from being you. You're not able to live your life as you when you're living through your stress and your unprocessed stuff. You are supposed to learn and evolve from that so that you could fully be yourself. So if you ever feel like you're in this space where like you don't know what you want out of life, you don't really know who you are and what you like, I hear this all the time and I'm like, well, what do you want? People are like, I don't know. Like, I think I want this, but often they only want that because that's what the world's told them they want. We often don't know ourselves. And that's because we never learned how to process our emotions in a healthy way so that we can evolve and learn more about who we are, because that's the process. So a little bit more in trauma and emotions. Remember, trauma is not what happened, it's what's living in you because you didn't process what happened. You cannot be re-traumatized, you guys. Re-traumatized would mean the event would have to occur again. When people say this, like, oh my God, I can't go back there, it will re-traumatize me. Now, granted, there's a safe way to do this. There's a way that, throws people into spirals. But really, one of the reasons people are scared to go into their trauma is because we as a world have made emotions so freaking scary. We've made them so scary. Oh my God, if you go into that trauma and completely feel it, I don't know what will happen to you. Do you want to know what will happen? You'll feel a whole bunch of emotions, and then you'll be on the other side of them. And really, the reason we're so scared of emotions also is because as a child, you were likely never allowed to go through the full cycle. You were likely never given the time and space to fully flail around, to fully scream, to fully say all the things you needed to say, to fully cry, to fully do all of it to completion so that you could go, feel a lot better now. Had you done that, you would realize that this is how your body gets you back into balance. I'm not scared of my emotions. I'm not scared of going into trauma. When something comes up to me, I'm like, ooh, let's see what's there. Because I know going into it and feeling it and going through all of it at the other end, I'm going to feel a ton better. My kids know it. They see it. The people in our world know it and they see this. You cannot be re-traumatized. The only thing you can do is actually go and heal your trauma. And a lot of the trauma-informed talk in the world is harming us and actually feeling our trauma. I do understand there's a place for it. We need to make sure that people, those of us who come from privilege and those of us who have not, been through certain traumas, that we're being cautious when we do things like sales and marketing and stuff like that. And we're not literally grabbing people's trauma and like capitalizing on it and stuff like that. There's definitely some good trauma-informed stuff out there, but there's also some stuff out there that really teaches you to tiptoe on trauma. Oh my God, if this person does this, make sure you don't say this, make sure you don't talk, make sure. And so it's like we're all boundaried up and walking on eggshells around everybody's trauma to make sure we don't say anything that would be a trauma trigger, that would trigger somebody. Now, triggers are not a problem, you guys. Your triggers, the truth is in the triggers. Your triggers are your friends. They're annoying because because they take over. Triggers are annoying because you don't have control. Triggers are what show you that your trauma and your stress is what's in control, because you're all, and you can't stop it. That's why we don't like triggers, because you're having a full body reaction and your brain is basically saying, this is dumb, don't do this, why are you doing this? Doesn't matter, your body's having it. The triggers are showing you what actually still needs to be resolved and healed inside of your body. They're a beautiful thing. Now, they're not so beautiful when we're all just living from our trauma triggers and triggering each other and running around throwing things everywhere. But getting past your trauma is 100% possible. Getting past all these stuck emotions is 100% possible, to where you're going to look back and be like, oh my God, I can't believe that used to bother me. Wow. It's like magic. People used to ask me, what do you do for a living? I say, I teach people how to do magic. And they'd be like, what? And it's because it's literally almost like magic. You're like, God, that used to bother me so much. And now I just see it. I see it for what it is. I see the truth now, not all the emotions and stuff that were wrapped up in it. So what are we told about emotions? We're told that emotions are scary. We'll get stuck in our emotions. Emotions will take us over and are a sign of emotional instability. Certain emotions aren't appropriate to have. Certain emotions are bad and hurt other people. We've learned a lot about emotions, right? You may have came from a family where emotions did hurt people because nobody taught them how to handle their emotions. So you saw people stuffing their emotions. You saw people getting outraged and yelling, and your little body was like, whoa, no, no, no. Emotions are bad. They hurt people. I'm not going to have them. We've been taught certain emotions aren't appropriate, not appropriate to cry, not appropriate to do this. All emotions are real and appropriate and valid to you. Now, there are times when it's not necessarily appropriate to spew them on other people. Quite honest, most of our emotions are not appropriate to actually project out onto others. Most of our emotions are supposed to be for us to learn from and grow from. Even if it doesn't make sense, even if you think that thing out there needs to change. Remember, if my kids would just stop arguing, I wouldn't get so mad. If there's an emotion, there's something that needs to be looked at under the hood. It's kind of like in your car. If there's a knocking sound, it's not that bump you just went over. You gotta go look under the hood. There's something going on in there. All of this information is outdated. It's an outdated understanding of emotions. None of these are true. It's time for us to evolve our understanding of emotions, guys. They're all outdated. Emotions are not scary. They don't hurt people if we know how to do the emotional processing in a different way. You will not get stuck in your emotions. You feel stuck now because you're actually in the midst of sitting in the shit and not actually getting out of it by feeling the emotions. So maybe emotions are the answer to all of my problems? They are. They are. Because literally dealing with our emotions, processing all of this stuff out will change your relationships. It will change your physical body. It will change your finances. It will change how you relate to yourself. It will change your stress. It will change literally everything. As we emote, everything changes. Our friend, the neuropeptide that we talked about, who runs the show, he's the one telling your brain, to your DNA, to your organs, to your hormones, what to do. He's run by a very, very complex mechanisms of your emotions, of your physiology. And when we have this stress and these stuck emotions in here, they cannot operate well. They're stuck over here, blasting off hormones that shouldn't be blasted off, creating pain down in your back that shouldn't be created. They're all messed up because you're all imbalanced because you have all these emotions and stuff in here that were never evolved past so that your body could learn. When we emote, we actually change on a DNA level. So you may hear sometimes that, like, for example, happiness is genetic. And there's a lot of research on this, actually, guys. It says, hey, you actually get to only be so happy. Thanks, grandma. Thanks, grandpa. That's it. You have we call them DNA set points in my work. You have a DNA set point, set point, set point, set point, set point, set point. And that's that. It's how happy you get to be. It's how rich you get to be. It's how loved you get to be. It's how respected you get to feel. All of that passed down genetically. All just how it is. Now, how do we change these set points? Actually through emoting. As we begin to emote and actually resolve much of this, our entire body changes, our brain changes, literal neuroganglia are created. DNA is literally transformed, and the neuropeptides are now given different signals to do different things. So life doesn't have to be this hard. It's not supposed to be this hard. Just nobody ever taught us all the information I'm teaching you now so that you can start changing these things and evolving past these things. And furthermore, we're intentionally kept from our emotions. It's a great way to keep us from evolving. It's a great way to keep us from knowing ourselves. It's a great way to keep us living in fear and stress and anxiety and not being who we're meant to be in this world. It's a great systematic marginalization and oppressive method. It's done politically. It's done through religion. It's done through our schools. It's done all over the place. We are kept from our emotions. We're taught they're the devil. We're taught they're bad. We're taught they're low and stupid if you're emotional. And in doing this, we can't evolve past the things we need to learn from. We are kept stuck in this feeling of stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. We cannot see the world clearly. And then we are also very subject to fear marketing, to being capitalized on, you must buy this to be happy. You must do this. You must do this. You must do this, when none of this is going to do any of that for you. Only you can do that for you. So, guys, it's time to feel, heal, or evolve, as I like to say it, but feel, evolve, rise does not sound as good as feel, heal, rise. So we're going to stick with the heal for this sentence. But it's time for us to do this. Humanity is stuck. We are sad. We are depressed. We are sick. And this is the answer to literally 99.9% of our problems. Because as we do this work and get all this stuff out and change ourselves, then we're able to find our power again. We're able to see how we start implementing things in this world to make it better. We're able to come back together, come back to each other and work together. It changes everything. So are you ready? Are you ready to do this? Because tomorrow is big. Tomorrow is when we're going to teach you the rapid relief technique and how to apply it to your daily life. It's really where we're going to teach you how to remove everything that isn't you, how to really become a productive processor of your emotions and use what's happening in your life so you can finally start to feel different. We'll also be talking about additional ways to support yourself as you begin this work. So we'll talk a little bit about what we do, what we have to offer. We're going to give you the full method. We're going to practice it together. But then if you want to come join us to go deeper with us, which I highly recommend, we're going to talk about that a little bit too. And we have an amazing bonus we are going to offer you guys as well. So life can be stress-free. I've created it for myself, and so have many others who have learned to do this work too. And it's really funny because, I'll share with you, Melissa and I, my CEO, we even have these conversations sometimes when like really stressful situations are occurring in the business. And we'll be like, are you worried about this? And she's like, no, I'm not worried about this. But I keep thinking like, should we be stressed out about this? And I'm like, I think the world thinks we should be, but like, I'm not feeling it. Like, I just don't feel it. Like, we're going to be fine. Like, we know what we're doing. It's really incredible when you do this work, how, like I said, the stimuli is not going away, guys. I could list off right now a solid 15 things in the business that people would be like, what? And her and I are just like, yeah, life figures itself out. We got it. And we do got it. And when you feel like you got it, you end up getting it and it works. And it's not all this, it becomes fun and life becomes enjoyable again, even when things are wild around you. And it's not just us. We've shown many other people how to do this. And so it's possible for you too. So again, imagine a life with me, guys, where you weren't triggered. Stress didn't exist. And when stuff came up, you knew what to do. All of our monkey minds were quiet. We could work on creating a better world, a better life. You could move through everything feeling good, even when it's crazy. Your relationships were easy. You had control of your health, your wealth, and your happiness. And you felt comfortable and confident to be yourself. That life is possible for you. And we're going to show you in more detail how to do it tomorrow. So next steps, don't forget, homework prompt in the community. Introduce yourself if you have not. Post any questions that you may have, and we'll see you tomorrow. So I hope this was great information for you guys. Like I said, it's really the missing information that humanity needs so that we can start feeling different and really release that stress and anxiety from our bodies. So I'm excited for tomorrow. I feel like tomorrow's like the day where like the rubber hits the road and everybody starts to get it as we really begin to kind of practice the actual technique. So we will see you there. If there's anything I missed, Melissa, or any questions, let me know.
There was one question that just popped in saying, how did you find this? And I think that I know that that's a longer story, but it might be worth you sharing some of your experience on how we got here.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to talk about this a little bit tomorrow. I'm going to share my personal story about how I found this, because I didn't really find this. I created it. So I had done a lot of stuff that kind of worked and it just wasn't working. And like I kind of said in the beginning of this, where I was like, oh, I feel like we're settling. Like, I feel like we're settling when it comes to life. Do you ever feel like that, guys, where you're like, I feel like this should be better, but it's not like it's bad because, like, you know, you have food on the table, you have people that love you, but you're still like, something's just not right. And I just kind of felt like that. And so I just kept going. And I'll tell you tomorrow how I'm going to tell the full story of how it kind of happened tomorrow and how I really just discovered this. I mean, really, whether or not you believe in kind of divine and God and all of that, I really believe it was a divine gift that was given to me to really understand and use this and then share it with all of you because God knows we need it. So yeah, I'll talk more about that tomorrow.
And Deb just asked, where do we introduce ourselves in the app? So in the app, there is a dedicated space called stress less, live more. Deb, I believe you've answered a few of the homework posts in there, so you're already there. So you can just go into the main feed and say hi. This is who I am. And Kelly was also asking about the app. So we sometimes use this term interchangeably. Our Hey You Human community is available in app format on a desktop or in a browser on your phone. If you have not joined the app, in all of your emails, there's a reminder like join the community, click here, create your free account. Here's your free space. So all the links are right there. So it's nice and easy for you. But if you head over to app.heyyouhuman.com, it will give you the link to sign up. It'll give you the details to get your account set up and to join the dedicated space. I know sometimes I'm the classic skimmer of information. So I appreciate how it can get lost. I'm definitely one for being like, have we thought of this? And then someone's like, yeah, that was all in the message that we just sent. I'm like, oh, definitely just only skimmed the email.
All right. Well, we'll see you back here tomorrow. Same time, same place. We'll be here. All right. Bye, guys.